for the third experiment already? Yes, we are. And it is the same day. So, now we are on to, do I actually like historical books? Basically, I'm just trying to make historical less intimidating. So I did pick covers that I liked. So I thought I might actually be interested in them. So we've got Silence in the Library, and it does give me some like Sherlock Holmes vibes. So I think this one could be good. Then we've got one that gives me Pride and Prejudice vibes right here. So it's probably a Regency romance. And then we've got one that gives me kind of Lydia Kang vibes with like that opium or whatever book that she came out with. I like that one. And this one I think is going to have like some poison or something in the book. So why don't we start with this one? Because I'm curious to be able to read the blurb. So I'm going to go ahead and go in completely blind and read the first chapter. And then I'll get to read the blurb afterward. So here we go. Log 1810. So we are going way back. So this would be like classic era book age. Except for this book came out in 2019. So it's not an actual classic. But anyway, let's see what it is. The fat orange moon reflected in the silver bowl seemed so small. Effie, the youngest of the three sisters, cups her hands to lift the moon out, but the water slips through her fingers. The ripples break the moon's reflection into streaks of light. The sisters work on the bare granite of a clearing, a bald on the mountainside, under a sky rich with stars. People of a superstitious persuasion say the devil once trotted on the balds. They say that's why nothing will grow there, and any remnants of trees look lightning blasted and scorched. But the balds have plenty of life. They're slick with moss and lichens, and the tenacious stems of Asafoetida, I have no idea, and the yellow lady's slipper, and Jack in the pulpit have taken root in the crevice. I like the first paragraph. I don't like the second one. It's too much description going on. But anyway, luckily we've got some dialogue finally. Leave it alone, little one, says Rebecca, the eldest. The water has to be still. Rebecca's face is yellow from the light of the candle she holds in front of her, and her brown hair falls straight past her shoulders. The bowl is their mother's, etched with an old-world design none of the sisters understand. Effie had fetched the water from the river, venturing into the rushing current up to her hips. The candle comes from their mother's, I have no idea what that is, trousseau? I have no idea. Oh, man. Rebecca found it hidden in the linen shroud, wrapped together with an ebony-bladed knife and a length of copper wire. They hadn't opened the, whatever that word is, until their mother has been gone for 3 years. I'm guessing it's like a dresser, but it's being called something else. I don't know how to pronounce. I'm guessing it's French. I have no idea. Anyway, 3 is a powerful number. 3 years, 3 sisters. They haven't found a use for the knife or the wire, but their mother taught them how to pour molten wax into cold water and tell their fortunes from the shapes. So maybe this is going to be a little witchy. It's only a game, says Sarah, the middle sister, who does it. What? Oh, why does it matter if she touches the water? It's not going to hurt her, is it? Okay, I don't really get the point of this prologue at all. I think they could have just started with the story. But I will read on a little bit, see a little more of what happens in the actual chapter. This is interesting, but I'm kind of indifferent. I don't have any bad feelings toward it, but not any good ones either. So let's see what it's actually about. Dr. Waycross, nose bleeding and blistering, the best scientific medicine of 1822. He arrives in the Georgia mountains to bring his modern methods to the superstitious masses, but the local healers, the Winter Sisters, claim to treat yellow fever, consumption, and the hell-roaring trots just as well as he can. Some folks call the sisters herb women, some call them witches. Waycross calls them quacks. But when the threat of rabies, incurable and fatal, comes to town, Dr. Waycross and the Winter Sisters must combine their science and superstition in a desperate search for a remedy. Can they find a miracle cure, or has the age of miracles passed? And then it's got some quote stuff that people did. Praise for one of his other books are, I can't even say it, fact and fancy are intertwined cleverly and seamlessly in a top-notch, thoroughly American fantasy. And then another one says, envision Lewis Carroll on a romp through the mountains of Georgia, discovering a land of shimmery mystery and spirits, humble monsters, quirky characters, singing trees, and vengeful fish. The best part is that Tim Westover can really write, and that's from Josephine Humphreys, Hemingway Pen Award winner, author of Rich in Love. And then there's one from Joanne Butler, Historical Novel Society. Westover presents us with the delightful, imaginative world where trees sing and fish swim in the mist. His fluid, humorous style draws us right into the magical place. Highly recommended. But I don't know if that's for this book. I think that's all of those are for his last book, which is not this book. So that doesn't really tell me anything. And then there's stuff on the inside flap. It's kind of covered up, though. Again, praise for the last book. That doesn't tell me anything. Because you can write one good book and then all your other ones suck. But anyway. Yeah, the first chapter is 44 pages long. I did not read that many pages. I read, let me see. I think I read 21, 22. Yeah, 21. 21 pages. I might look at it again at some point. It's interesting. But 21 pages in, I didn't even know if the doctor was a dude or a girl. I had no idea. I couldn't tell because they were just being referred to as doctor. And it's I'd like to have something to go off of to picture the character. And there was no physical attributes at all. And no sex, nothing. Nothing. So I was I don't know what I'm supposed to picture. You gotta give me something. Even if you're writing something, for instance, that's more modern and has, non-binary characters, you still get, a hair color or eye color or something to envision. This has nothing. Let's see. I think we're going to go ahead and move on for now. And try Silence in the Library. And see how it goes. I am watching some sprints on the TV. I've got my Roku set up. If I can turn it where you can see Roku. So yeah, I'm watching those. I muted it to make the update, but I'm going to unmute and watch that. Take a little break from my brain. And then when we start the next sprint, I will start this. All right. This one is also written and published in 2021. So somehow I just wound up picking really recent books, even though I didn't look inside and they weren't on a new shelf or anything. So that's cool. Chapter 1, London, 1815. So we're sticking with that same time period within a couple of years for all these books so far. The sound of angry voices cut because the Jane Austen book, Pride and Prejudice, was 1818. And then this one is 1815. And then the other one was 1812 or whatever year. And then it was 1822 after the prologue. I haven't actually looked at the one that I think is going to be Jane Austen. But the real the real Pride and Prejudice was 1818. Anyway, let us read. Chapter 1, London, 1815. The sound of angry voices cut through the sleepy morning quiet. There were never raised voices on dignified, out-of-the-way Half-Moon Street, and certainly never from Lily Adler's own terrace. Her butler, Carstairs, was conscious of his youth spent as a boxer, and prided himself on his decorum. But as she drew closer to her home, she could see him standing on the front steps, facing another man in a dark suit and gesturing boldly, his voice just barely controlled enough not to be a shout. Lily was so surprised that her steps slowed to a halt. I'm already liking this one better because I like the writing style better. It still has the historic feel with it sounding a bit more modern, so that's good. Like, just easier to read, if that makes sense. Whew. Are those fellows carrying luggage into your home? Her companion asked, stopping beside her and frowning in confusion. Of course not, Captain. That would be... Lily trailed off, watching as two postboys finished unloading the pile of trunks and cases from a carriage and began hauling them one by one inside her home, pushing past the two arguing men with the dogged determination of those who intended to finish their task, collect their pay, and depart as quickly as possible. For a moment Lily panicked. The house on Half Moon Street was let to her for the indefinite future, and it had finally begun to feel like home. She had nowhere else to go if she was forced to leave. So let's find out what happens. I just recorded like 10 minutes only to realize that I had never hit the record button. Anyway, I read a little more of this. I do like the writing style, but I kept getting pulled out of the story because I continued to think about slavery. So, yeah, this book used the N-word, not the one that's commonly found in rap songs, but the N-word that's the same as the Spanish translation for the word black. Also, it had the, where it was calling Native Americans savages. I get that this was during that time period, those words make sense, but again, it's a fiction book, so if those characters aren't going to have anything to do with the story at all, then why even put those words in there? Because you're not giving any nuance to the situation at all. You're literally just putting those words in there for like a one-sentence line about something that doesn't even come up in the story. So I don't care for that. And then with this one, she has a bunch of servants, and her dad comes with his like whole entourage too. Now they call them servants, but because of the time period, I think they're probably slaves. And because she talks about when she got married, the woman came with her. So that just kind of makes me think this is a slave thing. Like, where you go, that person goes. It just, the little bitty read between the line things made me think slavery. And so, again, the person that's kind of like, you know, the housemaid, she's taking care of the house. So she's very happy-go-lucky, and so if this person is a slave, that kind of brushes over like all of the negative things that happen with slavery. And so again, I'm like, why can't you actually just make them real servants that you pay and don't extort? Because this is a fiction book, it's not talking about real history. So why don't you do that? That's kind of how I feel about this right now. So I don't know if I want to continue or not. I'm in a weird place. It's like, so recently I found out I do have African heritage. So it's like literally in my DNA. I've taken a DNA test. I'm still going by white because I'm white, and I feel like race is something that people perceive, not your DNA. So, because even if you took someone, you're like, you're 100% this, you give them a DNA test, I guarantee you they're not. Because like everybody's mixed and mingled for generations, and you would be so surprised how short a time it takes to become white. Oh man, I was lied to my whole life. My mom was lied to. My dad's side of the family was lied to. A whole bunch of white people were lied to and told that we were part Native American. And then when we get our DNA results, we see that that is a big fat false. And what we really are is part African, but apparently we can't be that. So that sort of thing isn't told to a bunch of white people. We're just told we're Native American, and that's how we get our melanin. And I know y'all are like, you very white. What are you talking about? You getting melanin? You should look at my childhood photos. Because that's why the lie was able to continue. Because if you look at the way I was when I was a kid, and you look at my aunt, you look at her kids, you look at my granddad, there would have been no reason why you would ever dismiss the Native American theory. But it was a lie. It was false. It was not true. And so that was an interesting result, but also not super surprising because I figured there would be lots of different stuff in there for me. I didn't think I was going to be all British and Irish, which I know is the case for a lot of people when they get their results. It's all British and Irish. And I was like, I don't want to pay all that money for the results to be boring. But yeah, so mine was interesting. And I know that it's from my mom's mother because her fourth sister is a half sister, so they share the same mother but not the same father. And so we both had the African percentages on our DNA. And it was like within like 1%. So I was like it was within like 0.1%, and she's my half aunt. So I was like, yep, it's from there. That's how we figure out where it's at. So it's the maternal side. But anyway, so then when I was looking through the relatives, I would scroll down, and then once I got to like the fourth page, I had noticed it was all black people. So I was like, okay, whenever I saw African at first, I was like, well, I don't really know what that means because there are people who are white who live in Africa. So it doesn't mean anything. Then I looked at their DNA results compared. We have the same regions, and we're all related to the same descendant. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's my third great grandparent, and I looked at what time period that grandparent would have been around, and it was during the height of the slave trade. So it's very possible that my third great grandparent was a slave. They also have the Irish percentages that I do. And I've watched lots of other people's DNA results, and for the most part, it is like a lot of people who are black have like 20% Irish. So I don't know if there is any specific reason for that. Other than that, I was doing some research because I had always heard also, not in depth, but about the Irish slave trade. There's some conflicting information out there, and it's easy to get deceived by some of the numbers because they're coming from Irish organizations. So I would suggest if you're looking into the Irish slave trade, don't look at the Irish information because they've conflated a lot of stuff. So I looked for other sources and saw a lot of the theories debunked, but there were definitely, most certainly, Irish indentured servants that would come over. So they were basically slaves for 12 years, but then they would be free. So it wasn't lifelong servitude like the African Americans who were, stolen and sold. And so I'm like, okay, well, if they were both working there and they were both treated as second-class citizens, then maybe there was a lot of interracial mixing between the slaves and the indentured servants, which explains why so many people that are black have a high percentage of Irish ancestry. So I don't know, because I know that there had to have been some intermixing pretty soon with that ancestor. So I don't know if that ancestor was the first to intermix or if it was the generation down. And the reason why I say this is because that ancestor, there was a clear branch from that one where certain cousins, like the fifth cousins and sixth cousins, all of them were black. And then like my fourth cousins, most of them were white. So I'm like, there was clearly a split. And if we look into the history with people trying to become white passing in order to get more privileges and higher standing in life, it seems like one side was like, we want to hold on to our culture, so they maybe were less apt to intermix, or they did it less frequently, so that, you know, people kept their high ratios of melanin or whatever. So that's why everyone on that side is black. And then on my side, it is clear that there was some intermixing and relatively soon. Because if that was my third great grandmother, and my grandmother was very white, very pasty, then that only leaves 2 generations in between for it to go from having a black ancestor to having white. That's very short. That's a short path. So I just think it's interesting, and I think it would be cool to learn more. And I've seen people that have gotten their DNA results where their lineage for their ancestor who was from Africa was a little bit closer, but they were white passing, and then they find out that their mother was like literally documented where they would write the word colored on there, but they were white passing and they married a white person, and they hid that their documents had said colored because of course there was the whole 1-drop rule thing. And so yeah, it's just very interesting. And so stuff like this, now that I know that the possibility of that is pretty high, that was in my ancestry, then seeing stuff like slavery has a little bit more of an impact now that I know that there's some closeness to it, like it did affect someone. And of course, whenever we have discussions about like reparations and stuff, part of that is about not only the current oppression, which I do not face because I am not black, so that's a whole different discussion. But there is the whole discussion with reparation that doesn't really have to do with the color that you are, but it has to do with your starting line being so much further back because of the fact that your ancestors were slaves. So they had a much later start, so accruing wealth, even if everyone became wealthy at that point, is going to be much slower and harder to progress than if you were, say, a slave owner. Like, that's where you delineated from. So yeah, I just think it's all very interesting, and it would be cool to learn more about that, and maybe why the one side decided to go one way and then the other side decided to go the other way and not intermingle. I mean, I think history-wise, I can kind of figure out, I'm thinking it's what I said. One side was like, we want to become white passing, and then the other side was like, no. So I'm thinking that that's what happened, but there's no way to really know for sure unless I connect with people who are maybe like super old now, like in their 90s, and they still remember their grandmother, who would be that connecting ancestor, to get more information. So I don't know. I don't know how hard it would be to do that, but it does have like the reach out feature. So I might do it at some point and get some more answers, because I mean, I think genetics in general is interesting. But anyway, the last book I have to try for this experiment is Mr. Malcolm's List. This is definitely going to have some sort of Darcy element, but before I get into that, I need to read y'all the blurb of this one, because I still don't know what it's actually about, so maybe the blurb will explain some stuff. Okay. Regency widow Lily Adler didn't expect to find a corpse when visiting a family friend. Now it's up to her to discover the killer. Regency widow Lily Adler has finally settled into her new London life when her semi-estranged father arrives unexpectedly, intending to stay with her while he recovers from an illness. Hounded by his disapproval, Lily is drawn into spending time with Lady Watts, the new wife of an old family friend. Lily barely knows Lady Wyatt. I'm like, what? But she and her husband, Sir Charles, seem as happy as any newly married couple, until the morning Lily arrives to find the house in an uproar and Sir Charles dead. All signs indicate that he tripped and struck his head late at night, but when Bow Street Constable Simon Page is called to the scene, he suspects foul play, and it isn't long before Lily stumbles on evidence that Sir Charles was indeed murdered. Mr. Page was there when Lily caught her first murderer, and he trusts her insight into the world of London's upper class. With the help of Captain Jack Hartley, they piece together the reasons that Sir Charles's family might have wanted him dead, but anyone who might have profited from the old man's death seems to have an alibi until Lily receives a mysterious summons to speak with one of Wyatt's maids, only to find the young woman dead when she arrives. Mr. Page believes the surviving family members are hiding the key to the death of both Sir Charles and the maid. To uncover the truth, Lily must convince the father. Wyatt cut me off after like 15 minutes of reading. But anyway, where's that? Must convince the father, who doesn't trust or respect her, to help catch his friend's killer before anyone else in the Wyatt household dies. Okay, so there's that book. Then there's this one, Mr. Malcolm's List. So I already started reading the first page, but I'll reread it again for the sake of y'all getting to hear it, since I have done that on all the other books. Consistency. The Honorable Jeremy Malcolm, second son of the Earl of Kilbourne, was the biggest catch of the season, the year of our Lord 1818, which was the year Pride and Prejudice was published. It was true he had no title of his own, and was only a younger son, but his aunt on his mother's side had left him the bulk of her sizable fortune and a large country house in Kent. He also had his considerable personal assets to recommend him, meaning he's hot. Only the most ambitious of young misses would overlook the handsome Mr. Malcolm in favor of the Marquess of Mumford, who was at least 50 and had no chin, just for the privilege of hearing herself called my lady. For what woman would choose to be called my lady when she might enjoy the sole honor of being called Malcolm's lady? I would rather just be called my name. But anyway... But it was beginning to look as if no woman was ever to enjoy the inestimable privilege. For though he was by no means a hermit, and attended Almack's along with various other balls, routs, I have no idea, and assemblies, Mr. Malcolm was earning a reputation as a trifler, a breaker of hearts, a destroyer of young ladies' dreams. A what? Malcolm asked his friend Lord Cassidy upon being told the latest gossip concerning him. A destroyer of young ladies' dreams, Cassie told him, enunciating slowly and carefully. What rot, Malcolm replied, turning to survey the ballroom, and one beautiful debutante in particular. Perhaps the gossips are correct. You paid very particular attentions to my cousin Julia, and now have not been to call in over a week. Malcolm turned to look at his friend, one eyebrow raised. I escorted your cousin to the opera once. I did not pay her very particular attentions. What actually occurred is beside the point. It's what people say that matters. And when you did not call again, how did that make Julia look? You spent 2 whole days locked in her bedchamber because she spent 2 whole days locked in her bedchamber because she did not want to face anyone. If that is typical of Miss Thistlethwaite's behavior, she has no cause to complain when people speak ill of her. Cassie did not reply, letting his silence on the subject speak for itself. He assumed a wounded expression, and, although Malcolm staunchly defended his friend whenever it was remarked that Lord Cassidy closely resembled a hound, Malcolm could not deny the likeness was particularly strong when Cassie was sulking. I am sorry, Cassie, that your cousin has become the target of gossips. The large brown eyes continued to stare at him reproachfully. I did not set out to distress her, but neither am I going to propose marriage to a woman merely because I took her to the opera. No one said you had to, Cassie said. Perhaps not, but it is what they want. What are those dreams that I am accused of destroying? They are dreams of wedding the catch of the season, purely for the sake of my misfortune and fortune and holdings. The only way I could fulfill the numerous expectations I have excited is to become a polygamist. If I even speak to a young lady, she is envisioning a trip down the aisle. So why not just choose some girl and make an end to it? Isfrin asked. Why do you think I am here tonight? I am as anxious. I am very anxious to find a suitable bride. What's wrong with Julia? She's generally acknowledged to be a handsome girl, Cassie said, though he couldn't quite meet his friend's eyes. Julia had harangued Cassie into discovering what she'd done to earn his friend's displeasure. Cassie was trying to do his cousinly duty by suggesting Julia as the suitable bride, but he felt uncomfortable doing so. He knew better than anyone just how annoying she could be. So, of course, there's some more for the chapter, but I will say that this one has had the easiest reading style, which is why when I read it, I don't sound like a kindergartner learning to read, which has been the case for most of the other books. I think we can all agree for the past couple of chapters, no insults to kindergartners. A lot of the other ones I was struggling. I was just struggling. Not, if I was reading it in my head, it would be one thing, but reading some of the stuff out loud, the way that the sentences were structured, or just throwing in big words every other word. Not that they were hard words, but literally just that they were long, so your brain doesn't... Are you kidding me? What? Are you telling me again? Are you kidding me? What? Has my phone ran out of film time, so it keeps shutting me off, and I don't even notice it until I go to press the end, and then all of a sudden I'm turning the film button on? I don't know what's happening here. It's making me mad. Picking up back where I was. Not that they're hard words, but just that the brain has to break them up into little bitty segments for you to say them. So if you're trying to read at an adequate pace out loud, doing that just leads to a lot of tongue twisters and having to stop to catch your breath because stuff's not being structured in a way that leads to you being able to breathe while reading it. That's all I gotta say. I don't really know what I said before that, other than, yeah, this is going to be my favorite, I think, out of the stack of 10 books that I've tried for these 3 experiments. And so I think the other one that I would probably still be interested in reading would be The Wise Women. Cutting me off, so I'm not really sure what the last part of the video said. I was talking about how this one was really easy to read, versus some of the other ones, because I kept getting stuck on words in those. And it's not that the words were hard words. Like, I knew what most of them meant. Some of them I'd never heard of. But your brain still has to split up long words into syllables so that you can comprehend what you're seeing, especially if it's a new word. So, yeah, it just kind of makes you read a lot slower. So it doesn't have as good of an experience. Whereas this rolls off the tongue, so you can go pretty fast with this, even faster if you're just reading in your head instead of out loud, because you don't really have to think about anything. I've read the first chapter, absolutely love this. This is my type of read. So basically what has happened is that Mr. Malcolm literally has a list of qualifications for whoever he's going to wind up with. And so when he meets and talks with a girl, if they start to not meet some of their criteria, then he doesn't call on them again. So I get this, though. I definitely had a list. And my husband met all the qualifications, so we got married at 19. I'm just saying, lists work. They're effective. We're still married. It's going to be our 13th anniversary on the 10th of October. So, yeah, lists work. They have a purpose. But so Mr. Malcolm his friend Cassie has a sister who was interested in Mr. Malcolm, but Mr. Malcolm said she didn't meet the qualification, basically because she couldn't talk about politics, or she couldn't have like more important conversations. Her conversations were very trivial, and so he wants to be intellectually stimulated, and she just couldn't do that. So she feels scorned, so she decided that she was going to invite her friend to come to stay with her to do all of the London society stuff. And she is going to train her friend along with the help of the cousin, who she's kind of roped into helping her out because the cousin is best friends with him. Train her to meet all of the qualifications on this list and make her the perfect girl for him. And then once he like pays attention to her and is like, oh, you met all the qualifications or whatever, then she is to tell him that she has a list and that he doesn't meet her qualifications. She doesn't want to do this. She thinks that it's unethical, and she's also surprised that the best friend of him is willing to do it as well. But there's a part in here where the best friend basically says he would pretty much do anything for his sister unless it's just like completely, utterly ridiculous, or like could endanger her, I guess. So he's in on it. And I'm with her. I'm like, that's pretty unethical, but very fun to read about because we know he's going to find out eventually it's going to cause a breakup. She's going to actually fall in love with him. That this is what's going to happen. I already know this is a trope. This is a story plot line that has been used time and time again. It is perfect for a movie, and it is supposedly going to become one. I don't know when, but I'm excited for it. Let's see when this book was published. Maybe the movie is already out, for all I know. So, 2020. Ooh, I wonder if the movie is already out. We need to find this out if the movie's out. I'll read the back to you. Moreover, Mr. Darcy, there's a new man in... Oh, move over, Mr. Darcy, there's a new man in town. It is a truth universally acknowledged that an arrogant bachelor, insistent on a wife who meets the strictest of requirements, deserves his comeuppance. The Honorable Mr. Jeremy Malcolm is searching for a wife, but not just any wife. He's determined to elude the fortune hunters and find a near-perfect woman, one who will meet the qualifications of his well-crafted list. But after years of searching, he's beginning to despair of ever finding this paragon. And then Selina Dalton arrives in town. Selina, a vicar's daughter of limited means and a stranger to high society, is thrilled when her friend Julia invites her to London, until she learns it's part of a plot to exact revenge on Malcolm. Selina is reluctant to participate in Julia's scheme, especially after meeting the irresistible Mr. Malcolm, who seems very different from the arrogant scoundrel of Julia's description. But when Mr. Malcolm begins judging Selina against his unattainable standards, Selina decides that she has some qualifications of her own, and if he is to meet them, he must reveal the real man behind Mr. Malcolm's list. So the other thing is that the friend Julia is getting her to stay because she had been off living in Bath for the past 3 years because her town where her father's a vicar is very small. She doesn't have like any like men or anything there, and she's 22, so she wants to get married because at this time like unmarried women can't really live alone. And so she's been the companion to this older woman who has just died. And so she's been living in her house in Bath, but it's the nephew's house now. So she knows eventually the nephew will come back. So she can't stay there, which means she's kind of homeless in a way. So when she gets invited for the season to come to her friends, she's like, great, this is awesome, perfect timing. She's already packed up everything anyway because she was going to go back to the vicar's house, her dad. So she just changes her destination to London instead. And so Julia says, you know, if you don't do this plan with me, then you might have to go home early. basically letting her know, I only invited you here to help me enact my revenge and teach this guy a lesson. So if you don't help me out, then I don't have room for you. Like, I don't want you around. So petty and immature. I'm trying to figure out, they're friends, but are they the same age? Because that's really, really petty for a 22-year-old, because she's 22. And I don't know how old Mr. Malcolm and the cousin are. I'm guessing they're probably like 25-ish, just because the guy, not this guy, but the guy's best friend, and the cousin, or what? Wait, what? Oh. I thought it was his sister, but it's not. It's his cousin. I don't know why I was thinking sister. So, he doesn't have any siblings, so he treats the cousin like a sibling, and she doesn't have any siblings either. So, yeah, he'll do anything for her, and I don't know what I was getting at with that at all. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, this happens. But yeah, I'm really excited about reading the rest of this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, I know what I was getting at. I was getting at age differences. So when I was thinking they were brother and sister, I was like, oh, maybe they're like 3 years apart, because she does come off as being a bit younger than him. Really, to me, she comes off as being like 15, but this girl's 22, so that can't be the case. But yeah, I'm interested, and now I want to know if this has become a movie, so I'm going to look it up and let y'all know if it's become a movie. So it says that the U.S. release date was July 1st, 2022. I'm surprised I hadn't heard anything about it, because this is a Regency romance, and they like, well, with the Bridgerton books, there wasn't really diversity other than Simon being having a stutter, and I think he might have been dyslexic too. But yeah, so how they changed that and made it more diverse for the show, for this one with the movie, almost all of the cast are people of color, so that makes me really happy. And the girl in here, Selena, she was described as having a darker skin tone than her friend, and it was described as being kind of golden, and then the person that they have cast is Indian, from what I can tell. So that does work, and there has not been any like racial descriptions for any of the characters that have been specific, so I don't know if that was something that they decided to do for the movie because of the popularity of changing things from the Bridgerton books to the adaptation and including a more diverse cast, or if it is actually in the book and we're just not really seeing it. Yeah, because the character who was explaining the looks was the cousin, and so he was just talking about the contrast between the two girls. But in this one, I think the Julia in the movie looks to be biracial, and in this book it describes her as having like a red auburn color hair with green eyes and fair skin, and the other girl has like golden skin with emerald green eyes and very like light red strawberry blonde. So now that I think of it, they totally changed it for the movie. But I am okay with that. I think if done right and they have people on in the writing room that can make sure they're, you know, on their P's and Q's when they're switching up races and stuff like that, to make sure that, you know, they're getting authentic characters, that I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Now, I would not be all for the reverse of that and taking like a POC character and turning them white. I'm not for that. But the reverse switching because there's so much media already out where it's like all white cast. I'm okay with the reverse happening, even if it's not in the source material. That's just how I feel for now. I'm just telling you. So yeah, I'm really excited for the movie because it says that it's already out. I'm wondering where I can actually like go watch the thing, because I just watched the trailer and it was really good. So that's, yeah. I'm definitely going to want to go see that, but I am totally going to read this book. So this will probably be the only one that I read out of this stack of 10, just because I really want to focus on books that I own, especially as we're ending the end of the year. But this one, I know it's going to be a minimum of a 4-star. It might be a 5-star, because the writing is 5-star quality and the plot line has all the tropes that I know and love, and so I know what's going to happen. It's very predictable, and the trailer confirmed it, but I don't care that it's predictable, because I know what I like, and I like this. So yeah, I'll be reading more of that at some point. The other one that I might try to at least read a couple more chapters to kind of see how I feel about it is The Wise Women, but I don't know if I'll do that before returning these books, because I only have them for like another week, or I'll have to renew. So I think I'm gonna go with this, and I might do another vlog like this with pink books, reading pink books, because this is kind of like a pinky purple, but I'm still going to call it pink. So I could do a vlog with pink books. So I have this one, I have Love on the Brain, and I'm sure I have some like pink books on my shelf somewhere. I do. I have 4 Days of You and Me, that's like solid pink. I also have Here for the Drama, that's solid pink. And I have, what else do I have that's pink? There's one that's called Something Lies and Scandals, that's solid pink. And then I've got Missing at 17, Alice in Wonderland. I think that's it for my solid pink books. So yeah, I think it would be fun to do a vlog reading pink books. I even have a Christmas one over there that's pink. So yeah, I think that'll be my next challenge. Are pink books cheery and good? Because you would think that they would be very like light and funny. So we'll see. Let me know if you have a suggestion for my next reading vlog experiment, where I take a prompt like pink books and read the first chapter of a couple of them, break down what I like or dislike about them, and then ultimately pick like one from the group to read. So if I like it, because like we had the DNF one where all of them were DNFs, and then we had the rainbow one where I liked 2 of them, but I didn't feel the need that I had to read it because I've read similar stuff before. So it's not like begging me to be read, because it's not a favorite similar thing. And now we've got the historical, and I would say none of them were bad. They were all interesting enough to where like if I won the book in a giveaway or something, I would continue to read it, but they're library books, so I'm going to return them, and I'm just going to read this one. So that's what we have for this experiment. I guess what we'll do, since this is like already a super long video, is I will read this, but instead of updating in this video, I will do a whole nother video talking about this book and reacting to it. So I guess I'll turn it into like a vlog style video of literally me reading this book. And maybe I'll do a vlog with updates reading the whole books for the pink ones. So maybe I'll pick like 2 more pink books and read them and give you like a play-by-play update as well to kind of go with it. Or it'll be like this style where I talk about the beginning of the book and then I can do a full review later. I don't know, or I'll just do timestamps so you can watch it however you want and get all the details. But yeah, I'm totally going to be reading this and I am so excited. That is all I have for you today. So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share with your friends if you haven't already. And if you do comment, I will totally comment back. I like to like connect with people that are commenting and get to know y'all. So you will get a reply. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.